Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Emma, and we're playing Dragon Age Inquisition. We've just finished in Hushed Whispers, so we've picked up the mages as our allies in our endeavor to close the breach. This way. Let's go back to the war room, do the quests we need to.
The Inquisition appreciates your assistance in this matter, Lady Corbin.
And my miners appreciate your business. You'll have your lyrium by the end of the week. I should tell you, Ambassador, the Chantry raised some fuss when they learned about our arrangement.
The Inquisition must certainly seem an audacious idea to the Grand Clerics. We hope to convince them it is a necessary one as well.
Well, now I have to barge into this conversation.
I'll take my leave. Good day.
Who is she, Ambassador?
A merchant. I thought we should reach out to the dwarves to secure lyrium for the Inquisition's mages. According to Lady Corbin, it raised the ire of the Chantry.
How?
Access to lyrium makes us rather more formidable than anticipated. We're becoming a challenge. Sadly, the remaining Grand Clerics appear to be consolidating the Chantry's power, instead of comforting the masses.
Surprise, surprise.
Mage circles started falling years ago. The Chantry was troubled even before the Divine's murder.
Yet many people continue to bear it great love. We will not benefit from its decline. Little but the Chantry ties Orlais, Nevarra, Ferelden, Antiva, and even Rivain to a common cause.
Has the Chantry truly promoted such peace?
Andrasti's chant is familiar across kingdoms, a source of many shared customs. That is the crucial point. Common ground is the start of all negotiations.
And I mean, that's true, but it can be any tradition, really. It doesn't have to be this religious oppressive one. I mean, it is the start of many fights, because that's one of the bones they have to pick with Tevinter, is because they have the Black Divine. The heresy. I'm really interested to see what this is. We might lose reputation with Josie, but...
Are you sure? Families often fight the hardest.
Having grown up among four siblings, I concede your point. I found, however, that the only time two parties cannot negotiate is when they cease to speak. We must learn to think beyond our own wants to secure peace in Thedas.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we're kind of mostly closing the breach, which is a form of peace. I don't know if we need to promote the Chantry. I don't want to promote the Chantry. I'm not sure if that's what she's asking us to do or not. We'll be somewhat ambivalent.
The Inquisition will have plenty of time for that between finding the Divine's murderer and sealing the breach.
Busy as we are, I do have a question for you, if you've a moment. The remaining Grand Clerics sent a missive inquiring about the events at the Temple of Sacred Ashes. They demand to know whether the Inquisition officially claims that Andraste saved you from the breach. If it were up to you, how would you reply?
I don't want any part of that. You guys are well aware. The only thing is it might hurt our cause, because people will do stupid, horrible, thoughtless things in the name of religion. So if we wanted to be manipulative and ascertain our goals with the least amount of resistance, it would be to appeal to that, and to all those people who would blindly believe in something without looking any farther than their own wants and desires and interpretations. But I'm not here to play on the masses' ignorance and inability to critically think. I'm here to close this breach, to fight freedom for mages if we can. Because I feel like while Emalynde that's her sentiments on the matter, that's not why she's here necessarily. Or maybe it was. We never know why she was sent. to the conclave rather than to see how the proceedings go, but she could have been to make sure they go well enough, because making mages out to be even more dangerous or illegal than they were previously regarded as would be a danger to Dalish clans, because they have mages. You never know.
I'd tell the Chantry I was saved by circumstance, not divine intervention.
Yet as rumors your Andraste's herald grow, the Grand Clerics may not believe such a humble reply. A difficult situation, and I thank you for your answer. A good day to you.
Which means I'm gonna say whatever I want anyways. Oh my god. Alright, let's see if she has any other chat dialogue since we've completed that big quest.
Good day to you.
What do the people make of us?
Despite our fame, we're low on steadfast allies. We must aim for more.
Any visiting dignitaries I should watch out for?
Lady Drummond promised a visit. She has useful resources if we can get her to set aside her games.
What are her politics?
Oh, no, I meant actual games. Chess, cards, dice, little boards with carved idols from Tevinter. She made me play that with her for 8 hours once. Steer her towards cards if she insists on a match.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious though. I love little tidbits like that. So we had another option.
What do the people make of us?
Despite our fame, we're low on steadfast allies. We must aim for more.
Here we go.
Any thoughts on the people here?
Who did you mean?
Yes. Ooh.
I was thinking of Varric.
Oh, I could listen to his tales for hours. He actually let me read a chapter of his next book he's writing. My friends would be sick with envy if they knew. It's excellent, but a bit different from his past works. Only 3 beheadings so far.
Oh my goodness.
I'd love to know how you and Sarah get along.
I know she extracts gossip from the servants, and she keeps prying into things. Sarah's ability to vanish whenever her mischief's discovered must come in handy, however, I'm sure.
I love how sweet Josephine has something kind to say about everybody, even though she's clearly vexed, right? Adorable. Yes, please.
What's your impression of Solus?
I suppose I should be wary of an apostate, but our elven mage has conducted himself with the utmost propriety. And he has the most fascinating stories.
What do you think of Vivienne?
We've met a few times before at court. She remains a truly accomplished player of the game. So long as her interests align with yours, Madame Vivienne will be a most valuable ally.
Yeah, that's the silver lining there.
You must have an opinion of Dorian.
Who hasn't? The man could cause a scene standing quietly in the center of an empty room. Still, I do believe he has your best interests at heart, for all that he delights in mocking them from time to time.
God, I love Dorian.
What do you think of Sir Blackwall?
Sir Blackwall seems as loyal to the purpose of the Inquisition as he is to the Wardens. His travels must have taken him strange places. I wish he'd speak more about them.
I love that she loves listening to everyone else's stories.
The Iron Bull has had to have made an impression.
He is a loud, unapologetic accident merely waiting to happen. I do wish he'd stop daring poor dignitaries to outdrink him.
Oh my god. That's phenomenal.
Commander Cullen came to mind.
The commander is an intelligent, cautious man. I'm grateful he's in charge of our standing army. Still, he does sometimes resemble the man with a hammer to whom everything appears as a nail.
Mm-hmm. Josie is so good about this. She has everything kind to say, but she clues you into her true sentiments in the most polite manner.
I was thinking of Cassandra.
𝒸𝒾𝒁 is a princess of the Kingdom of Nevarra, although that barely seems important to her. She was not interested when I asked if we might make use of her royal relations. Still, the Inquisition would not have formed without Cassandra. She's an extraordinarily driven woman.
I love Cass.
Let's speak later.
Another time.
Cassandra is just great. Okay, before we go to the war room, I do want to run around and talk to our friends. I don't know where they're all hiding,
There was no word
though.
for heaven or for earth, for sea or
No.
sky.
Oh no, she's gonna give us a fucking earful.
If Fiona and her malcontents are joining us as allies, we need to be prepared. Abominations are inevitable. Cullen doesn't have enough Templars to handle incidents. Some of the rank and file need to be trained.
Again, as we discussed in the comment sections of the last video, I think it's wise to plan and have contingencies in place for such an occurrence, but I don't think that we need to treat mages as if they're already committing some crime. Yeah, definitely have a safety plan in place, like if something goes wrong. But don't like stick them in a cage and expect them to turn any second. That's literally the fucking problem we just saved them from. I don't like that we can control the mages, but that's gonna be the best option out of the four.
We can handle the mages. There's no need for Templars.
Have any of these men faced an abomination before, my dear? Have you? The veil is broken, and the raw power of the Fade rushes out like floodwaters through a shattered levee. In ordinary places where the veil is weak, magic is much more likely to attract demons. And if demons can walk our world with no blood magic to summon them, how safe do you think our allies are? There has never been a greater threat to mages than the breach. Until it is closed, no one is safe.
And I wish that Llewellyn hadn't dismissed the idea of mages, of Templars, because clearly a Templar is a good way in which to safeguard in the event of an abomination. So I'm not against abolishing Templars as a whole. I just think they have a very specific role that goes over here. And you don't need to act like a prison warden or slave master or whatever the weird roles they take on to deal with the abomination if it occurs. You don't treat mages like they're walking abominations when they're not. So that's not necessarily the answer I wanted to give, so this is kind of like, ugh. I think that this is definitely the most interesting one because she keeps saying they, them, the mages, when she is one. She doesn't say we, if you've noticed. And she's going to be like, well, I'm different. I'm in control of my faculties. And it's like, I'm sure everyone would say that, though, for the most part.
When you say mages are a danger, are you counting yourself?
Of course I am, my dear. Every mage who joins the cause is taking a calculated risk, whether they know it or not. Magic is dangerous, just as fire is dangerous. Anyone who forgets this truth gets burned.
First of all, very nice response from Vivian. Second of all, she's so pretty. Let's see. I mean, I don't think that's an unfair calculation. You just have to learn how to wield it, right? It's just like wielding a sword. A sword is inherently dangerous. Even if you just accidentally drop it, you're liable to lop, depending on how sharp the sword is and how you drop it, you could lop off some toes. Clearly cut yourself. I don't think being prudent is an issue here. Again, I'm not against the Templars in a very select, regulated application. So I don't want to just dismiss it. I think that maybe our best path here is to just be like, well, Thedas don't have Templars, and kind of comment from our background instead of removing them as an entity altogether. There's not a real great option for me here without knowing more about what this dialogue choice entails.
The Dalish get along just fine without Templars or Circle Towers.
As I understand it, the elves limit their risk by refusing to have more than 3 mages in a clan. Tell me, what becomes of the Dalish youngster who is not appointed first or second?
Ooh. So this is true. And honestly, I thought it was just 2 mages. And I don't agree with this practice anyways. And I don't think, as far as the mechanics work, that having mages together makes anyone more or less susceptible to possession. I always thought that it was to attract less attention, but I'm really kind of tempted to do the say what we mean, or say what you mean. Even though clearly that it is true that they are sent to other clans who don't have as many mages. Say what you mean is kind of defensive, and it is true. Yeah, I don't want to pick more bones, because she's right.
If a clan can't raise the mage, they're sent to another that's in need of a first or second.
And if there are no clans in need of a new apprentice? For those who value survival, sentimentality is not an option. Tell me something. As you will no doubt have a hand in shaping it, what future do you see for mages?
Without a doubt.
Mages should be treated like anybody else.
How free did you feel living on the run, never straying too close to villages or staying in one place too long? Paint the cage any color you like. It is still a cage. It's something to consider, my dear.
But that means we only need to deal with the way in which the public sees mages. I mean, it'll take a long, long time and active campaigns against TLDR bigotry, right? There are so many examples I could give throughout history of things that are similar, but we don't need to do that. It'll be a long, arduous task, but it's possible. Okay, let's make sure she didn't have any other chat options.
Oh, darling, you look terrible.
Thank you. Oh, wow. God, I can't remember which ones we've already done. I know... Have we done all these? I guess we can always come back. I guess I can always check my other episode, too. I'll do that because... I don't want to say the circle, because that sounds like we want to reinstate that. Right now, there are no circles. I want to help the mages. And I love her, like, slight passive aggression. You look terrible. Who's... Okay, Liliana, who's right over here? Oh, that's just Vivian inside. I'm not the Herald. Please respect the fact that I am not a fan of that title. It's like when your parents came up with a nickname for you when you were younger and you're like, God damn, I hate that. And they're like, ha! And they just call you it anyways and you're like, bruh, stop.
The Inquisition supports free mages. What's next? Elves running 𝒂𝒗?
Yes.
Cows milking farmers?
No, but that 𝒂𝒗 is for the elves. Andraste literally gave the elves 𝒂𝒗. So this Chantry bullshit is just manipulated the way in which people want it to work for themselves.
I take it you don't agree.
On the contrary, I approve. Heartily. I do wonder if you've considered what this support of yours will do. For mages in general, I mean. The Inquisition is seen as an authority. You've given southern mages license to, well, be like mages back home.
Not necessarily. Oh, can we hit on him? I like to hit on Dorian anyways, because I always assume it's just... This is going to be the weirdest terminology, but for lack of a better term, like platonic flirting. Like, we're just being friendly and chummy and not necessarily... playfully romantic without sexual intent. I guess, is that better? I don't know. Because I know he's gay and is not interested in me whatsoever. But he's adorable and dashing, and I want to give him compliments. I don't agree with that necessarily, that southern mages are going to be like the mages back home. I think they need to be equal, and I feel like there's a power imbalance in Tevinter in favor of the mages, and that's not good either. And there's the whole slavery issue, which isn't necessarily related to mages per se. It's related to Tevinter and its culture, and the mages just happen to be in power. But even if mages weren't in power, I feel like the people of Tevinter would still carry on that custom, right? So this is definitely going to be my choice here. It helps us circumvent that conversation to begin with.
If that means they're anything like you, I approve.
Ha! There aren't many mages back home like me.
I'd believe that.
I never fit in. Bloodstains are so difficult to clean, you see.
So we're doomed to a future of blood magic then?
Not at first. But you'd be a fool not to see where this could lead. Thing is, the Imperium was once just like the South. Templars, proper circles, all that rot. Then it changed. By inches. Not that this is reason to oppress us. Still, my homeland should be a cautionary tale, not a source of inspiration.
I agree with that. Just because we don't have circles and Templars doesn't mean we're automatically going to end up like Tevinter. It should be a cautionary tale. Equality. Regardless of who you are. I think that's the lesson we need to take away from that.
Have you gone to see Alexius yet? He's in the cells.
Not yet, no. I saw him before they locked him up. He looked despondent, broken. Not the man I remember, nor the one I want to. I suppose the Inquisition will judge him eventually. I wonder if there's any chance they'll show him mercy. He hardly deserves it, but for Felix's sake. I can't help hoping there's something left of the man I once knew.
Yeah.
So I take it you're Dalish? Is that the correct word here?
Oh no, I wanted to get closer to them. But there's that wall. This will do.
Yes, that's right.
We don't have Dalish clans coming northward, for obvious reasons. So I've never met one of your people before, although I've heard about them. Little. I hope this won't be an issue between us. I am here to help you deal with the Venatori, after all.
Yeah, like... I honestly... I don't remember if Dorian has slaves. I know that it's a very hot topic, and he and Solus have an exchange on it where Solus gets very heated and calls him the shit out, calls Dorian the shit out about his nonchalant, somewhat laissez-faire stance on slavery, which is very clearly a problem. But I can't remember if he has slaves himself.
And I appreciate your help, Dorian.
Excellent. Mutual appreciation is a grand way to begin.
It occurs to me that I barely know anything about you.
Beyond my being a mage from Tevinter, you mean?
Beyond that, yes.
And beyond my being so charming and well-dressed, which is obvious to anyone.
I have to. It's part of the banter.
I'm well aware of your finer qualities. Believe me.
Of course you are. You're a discerning and intelligent woman, after all. Now, what was I talking about? Ah, yes, me. I am the scion of House Parvis, a product of generations of careful breeding and the repository of its hopes and dreams. Naturally, I despised it all. The lies, the scheming, the illusions of supremacy. That's Tevinter in a nutshell, isn't it? Needless to say, my family was not happy with my choices.
What did you mean by generations of careful breeding?
The great families of Tevinter don't have children. They refine traits, weed out the undesirable, and promote the rest. My mother was chosen for my father because magic runs strongly in her blood. Never mind that they loathed each other.
Oh, I hate it.
They wanted a son who could become Archon to make House Parvis the envy of the Imperium.
Ugh.
They got me. A cautionary tale that you should be careful what you wish for.
Why would your family be upset with your choices?
Because I rejected their idyllic plan. If they had their way, by now I'd be married to some unlucky girl from a powerful family. we'd live in luxurious despair, despising each other as I waited to take my father's place in the magisterium. I declined the honor, and thus it's best I'm far from home. Less of an embarrassment that way, you see.
I'm getting the impression that you don't care much for your homeland.
On the contrary, I care for my homeland a great deal. There's so much potential. Sadly, we squander it. We refuse to acknowledge how far we've fallen because pretending is easier. We pretend the 𝒂𝒏 can be beaten. We pretend that we're superior to everyone, even our own people. Not everyone feels that way. I don't. Sadly, we're the minority.
It just seems... So much of what you say about the Imperium is entirely negative.
It might sound that way. For all our faults, my people have many virtues. We are laden with history and culture. Tevinter is where Thedas truly began, remember? We treasure our past and preserve it. You can walk down a side street and find nothing built during the modern ages. And despite appearances, we care. Deeply, about everything. We have no reserve, not in war and not in love. If I truly believed my homeland was beyond all hope, I wouldn't miss it so much.
Why remain with the Inquisition? Why not go back to Tevinter?
I'm not exactly welcome back home. Not that it matters, I'm quite accustomed to being a pariah. It adds to my charm.
I agree.
I can do more for Tevinter here. If the Venatori succeed, it'll set my homeland back 1,000 years.
Yep.
I'm sure some magisters would disagree, but that's why we kill them.
Dorian, I love you.
I think I've heard enough.
That's too bad. I never tire of talking about
Oh my
myself.
goodness. Did we do this one?
I'd like to ask you about Tevinter.
Ah, yes. Everyone outside the Imperium always seems quite fascinated by it. Probably why they come up with so many ridiculous tales. Flying cows over Minrathous. That's madness. All right, that one's actually true, but the cows didn't have wings. I digress. Anything in particular you wanted to know?
Woo!
Just how often is blood magic used there?
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
That's what any magister would tell you. They'd be convincingly offended by the notion, too. Of course, what people call blood magic here, and what we consider blood magic, are two different things.
What's considered actual blood magic in Tevinter?
Blood magic isn't inherently dangerous. Using your own blood or that of a willing participant, what's the harm? The problem is that what's permitted only gets you so much power. And what if you need more? You always need more. That's where we get into sacrifices and demon summoning. None of that is done. Not officially. Behind closed doors, it's a different story. Real blood magic can give you an edge, a leg up against your opponents. It's safe to assume that any mage of rank does it. The rest are quietly shut out of power, to put it bluntly.
So it's a corruption problem. Because, like, clearly that's still frowned upon. The malicious, unconsensual use of blood magic. It's just difficult to pin that illegality on the powerful people using it. It's kind of a problem everywhere. It's just easier to blame magic than admit that the people in power are extremely selfish, self-serving, and corrupt.
You'd think the Templars would object.
I imagine they did, long ago. Once, their investigations might have been sincere. Then their balls were cut off. Too inconvenient. Nowadays, only the friendless are accused. Most of them probably innocent.
Yep. It's just politics, unfortunately. And shitty people.
There must be some mages who oppose this.
Of course. I do. And I'm not entirely alone. Occasionally, there'll be a magister who makes noise, and then the reform talk begins. All very patriotic. Meanwhile, that magister will be quietly shunned. chances are, surprise, it's learned he was a 𝒸𝒾𝒶 all along. Most learn to keep quiet. Me? I enjoy the allure of pariahhood.
So sad. But people will literally do whatever it takes to keep themselves in a position of power. I mean, we see that with the Chantry and the way they treat the mages. We see that with the mages with the way they treat other mages in Tevinter.
Anyone who talks about the Imperium mentions slavery. It's the center of the slave trade.
Ah, that is true.
And did you have slaves?
Not personally, but my family does and treats them well. Honestly, I never thought much about it until I came south. Back home, it's how it is. Slaves are everywhere. You don't question it. I'm not even certain many slaves do.
That is a terrible attitude, my friend.
That's it. You don't question it.
In the south, you have alienages, slums, both human and elven. The desperate have no way out. Back home, a poor man can sell himself. As a slave, he could have a position of respect, comfort, and could even support a family. Some slaves are treated poorly, it's true. But do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better?
That's a hard situation because normally my response would be like, well, instead of selling himself, why don't we just give him some gainful employment? But clearly we have poor here who can't get gainful employment. I'm not an economist, so it's very difficult for me to reason out a solution to that problem. Because I see his viewpoint. I do. Like, it used to be a thing. I mean, like, on Earth, in our world, it was a thing to sell yourself. It was called indentured servitude, right? It's not called slavery. But people used to do it for, like, passage on ships to America, right? Like, it's not an uncommon ordeal, and I don't know if it's still a thing or not. Volitionally. Unvolitionally, it still is. But this is tough. So, okay, so some slaves are treated poorly, but do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better? What do we want to call him out on? I think we want to call him out on treating people poorly. Like, we don't want to gloss over, like, we don't want to make that excusable.
Is that what you call it? Treated poorly?
Abuse heaped upon those without power isn't limited to Tevinter, my friend.
That's friend.
I don't know what it's like
true.
to be a slave, true. I never thought about it until I saw how different it was here. But I suspect you don't know either. Nor should you believe that every tale of Tevinter excess is the norm.
And I mean, all fair points, right? Slavery is terrible and we should abolish it. Like, hard stop. But I do understand, coming from his background and his experience, where his viewpoint is coming from.
It seems strange that an entire empire would be ruled by mages.
I find it strange that your mages don't rule anything at all. Actually, the fiction in the Imperium is that mages don't rule. The Magisterium rules. That magisters are all mages is considered a convenient technicality.
What is the Magisterium, exactly?
The upper house of the Imperial Senate, and the only part worth having a seat on. Those seats are split among the circles of Magi, the Chantry, and the major families. All mages now. It's odd that outside the Imperium, you use Magister like it applies to every Tevinter mage.
If you're not a Magister, then what are you called? No special title?
I'm an Altus, which is almost as good as a Magister, depending on who you ask.
It's like the upper class nobility.
I've never heard of an Altus.
Upper class. Those families who trace descent from the Dreamers, the first prophets of the old gods. If you're a mage and you're not Altus, then you're later, lower class. If you're not a mage at all, you're 𝒸𝒾𝒶. That's everyone else. We do love our fancy words.
Which is interesting because in the Dragon Age tabletop RPG, you can play every single one of those. You can be an Altus, you can be a 𝒸𝒾𝒶, you can be a Layton. Very interesting. And they all have different accumulations of stats and abilities. It's very cool.
I thought the Archon ruled over the Imperium.
Well, yes. Technically, he can overrule laws passed by the Magisterium, but that never happens. Even so, he gets to appoint new Magisters, which means all the families vie madly for his favor. Thus, the Archon gets invited to all the parties. The truest path to Tevinter influence, let me tell you.
If it's a fiction, that means mages do rule then.
Yes and no. Let me put it this way. Mages do rule, but not all mages are equal. If you're not from the right family, chances are you don't rule anything. Maybe you're even a slave. The idea that anyone could be a mage, however, keeps the masses placated.
Ugh.
Can anyone be a mage?
Technically, the potential runs mostly in bloodlines, but it's been known to happen. More importantly, commoners believe it can. Tevinter legend is chock full of mage heroes from humble origins. So they hold out hope. Someday my son or my son's son will be a mage. Someday. Poor sods don't realize that means he'll be a quaestor at the arse end of the 100 Pillars, at best.
It's just like the same way in which the Chantry manipulates the masses so they'll stay amenable to their rule, right? It's still shitty.
Being a quaestor isn't a good thing.
I imagine the average non-mage likes to think so. Counting numbers and shuffling papers all day is better than many occupations after all. If you're a second-class citizen among a pack of piranha, however, your outlook changes.
Let me ask you something else.
Of course.
Is that everything? Oh man, we've got so much.
There's an Imperial Chantry, isn't there? With its own divine.
You people aren't supposed to talk about the Black Divine, are you? If you mention him outside the Imperium, people make that face, like you're urinating in public. But yes, you do have the Chantry, or a version of it. Night and day comparing it to yours.
Oh my god. I love Dorian. He needs to quit with that slave bullshit, though.
Is the Imperial Chantry so different from ours?
Not in theory. The main difference is in the whole magic is meant to serve man, not rule over him business. Back home, ruling the unwashed masses is serving them, for the good of the Imperium. Perhaps it started with good intentions, but these days it's academic. The circles are in command.
There are circles of magi in the Imperium.
We don't have dismal little mage prisons, if that's what you mean. They're academies, prestigious ones. We have Templars as well, but they don't cancel spells or whatever your Templars do. They're soldiers. They watch for abuse of magic, yes, but only those who are weak or who fall out of favor get dealt with. Mostly they enforce the Magisterium's edicts. The Chantry smiles and nods from the sidelines.
See, if we can find a happy medium between Tevinter and Southern Thedas, I think we'd be in a good position. Because I'm very much in favor of the circles being a place of learning, because mages still need to control their magic, right? That's basic. That's foundational. But we need to do it without the little mage prisons. But also not so bereft with corruption that nobody is actually being responsible and regulated. Whew.
Do you really call him the Black Divine?
We don't call him that, oh no. In the Imperium, he's the true divine. The woman sitting on the sunburst throne is some backwater pretender. It all stems from a disagreement over Andraste. Marvelous, isn't it?
Why would they disagree over Andraste?
It's not my field of expertise, but the Imperium believes Andraste was a mortal woman, a mage. Down south, they say, no, she's the bride of the Maker, ascended to his side, divine provenance, a blah, blah, blah. We feel better believing Andraste was one of us. Makes executing her less damning, you see. So we elected a man as divine, the South declared war, and we've been feuding cousins ever since.
They're just manipulating the narrative to their advantage, even though it's still religion. And we've already come across stuff that says that there were conflicting accounts of Andraste, but they were summatively hushed and persecuted as heresy until the ideal dialogue was selected out of the many, and that was propagated as the truth because it suited someone's agenda. It's hard with any of this because it's all like fabricated to suit whomever is currently in power and their ends. Ugh.
So, the Imperial Divine is always a man?
All the better to distinguish him from that other one, yes. Don't think there aren't a number of female magistes who bristle at that. Why can't they be divine after all? Same reason you never see a man on the Sunburst throne. Because that's how it's always been done. Excellent reasoning.
I mean, Dorian's right, though, and it is a legitimate logical fallacy to follow tradition for the sake of it.
Do you consider yourself Andrastian?
The big question. It might surprise you that I do consider myself Andrastian. I simply do not believe in the Chantry. It is a relic, whether back home or here in the south. Something from a bygone age desperately clinging to relevance. It's not an opinion that makes me popular.
I can't imagine it is. We're not Andrastian. So I don't know if she's agreeing with the fact that the Chantry is just a relic, or that she too is Andrastian, like in a spiritual capacity without following the tenets of organized religion. I'm gonna go ahead and go with it, just because it's the best option here.
I share your opinion, actually.
That's not surprising, considering what the Inquisition represents. I'll say this. I may not believe in the Chantry, but I believe in you.
In me?
That the Maker sent you, whether through Andraste or fate. Cassandra is not wrong. You are what we needed most at the moment we needed it. That's what they will say in ages to come.
I guess this is what people think to make themselves feel better about the situation. Because I'm with Llewellyn, right? It was happenstance. It was pure circumstance. I know what happens. That we were saved in the manner that we were. There's an explanation for this. Humans have this adorable quality of trying to make patterns where none exist, to make it fit within our worldviews and respective schemas. I don't want to call him a fool. That's rude, and it's unnecessary. I guess being surprised is the most polite, amenable way to express our opinion. That it's like, oh, that's not what I expected, but you don't need to shit on his opinion at the same time.
You don't seem like the religious sort, to be honest.
If you define religious as sitting in a chantry and listening to a blithering hen tell you how to live, then no. If you define it as believing in the possibility that something larger than yourself exists, then yes, by all means. The world is bigger than I, even bigger than you. It laughs at all the things we think we know. The Maker doesn't need me to believe, but I do. The thought of no one at all watching out for us is too frightening.
Let me ask you something else.
So many questions.
Look, I like talking to you, Dorian, and you like to talk, so I don't see what the harm is.
I'm wondering if the Imperium would be a useful ally.
I'd think you'd be more concerned whether or not they'd support the Venatori. They won't, of course. At least, not officially. They'll disavow all knowledge of dangerous cultists. Secretly, many Magisters will rejoice at the idea. And if the South falls to chaos in the meantime, all the better.
It would be in the Imperium's best interest to help. Surely it could use allies.
I think the Imperium gave up on the idea of allies a long time ago.
That's
We've been
fair.
fighting the 𝒂𝒹𝒾𝒁 for what? 200 years off and on? It's a point of pride that we go it alone. They'll sneer at the South behind their silk handkerchiefs and say, "You've had it easy for far too long." Let's not forget that the Inquisition seems to be an arm of the Orlesian Chantry. Anathema so far as they're concerned.
We're not part of the Chantry. The Chantry opposed the Inquisition's formation.
You think that matters? Don't be silly. The Herald of Andraste. Your very title smacks of the Southern Chantry. You may as well be a heathen. I think they're far more frightened what you'll do if you succeed.
That's all I wanted to know.
Fair enough.
I should go.
Here I thought we were just getting to the good part.
Oh, ooh, oh shit, codex stuff. I'm really excited to have Dragon Age 4 explore Tevinter, because they've already told us that it's going to be set there, right? And we get that teaser at the end of this game, definitively. So I'm excited to see what parallels they'll draw, what sort of, because the thing is, as we talked about last time, the writers can always kind of change whatever they want to fit the current narrative, right? So stuff we might have relied on previously to come to conclusion A might be tweaked, or we might get more information that is going to give us conclusion B that's going to seem a lot more accurate than this. It's because information changes, right? The more information we get, we should, as intelligent, critical thinking individuals, change our perspectives and worldviews and opinions based on that factual information. Factual source information. So I'm excited to see where that goes and what they're going to give us and how the lore is going to be fleshed out one way or the other, right? All right. I know this has been kind of a lot of chat and dialogue, but it's kind of wonderful and I love it so much. It's my favorite part of the game. So thanks for sitting here with me and listening to it and, you know, letting me have a bit of a dialogue about it too. So I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.